because if you do stand up
Right.
or you, I mean, maybe not as much, but like for me, usually you're just pretending that they're not there. And in this piece, you were speaking directly to them. So the mandate from our director was anything that happens, you roll with.
Right. And also, like, it's striking me as you tell me about it that is the necessity. That is why theater is necessary. Was, you know, even if you don't have that dialogue or that talk back after the show, the sort of intimacy and the visceral nature of people performing whatever piece it is it's moving in an essential kind of human connected way. And I don't think, you know, I think when people talk about theater or the vitality of it or why it's necessary culturally, that is what it is. It's that
Yes.
dialogue, right?
Yes. And I think it has become elitist, and in Broadway, at Broadway in particular.
Well, I think there's an issue with the nature of the amusement park part of it, and also the nature of subscribers. It's an old timey thing.
Yes, and the audience is older.
Mm-hmm.
The audience is not always multicultural.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Yeah.
it is a, and so I think
True.
expanding that audience is so important, because I think the authors and the people who are coming up, the things that they have to say, you have to earn the audience in a way that in a lot of ways in movies you don't. And I think the authors coming up, what they have to say is, it's just like, right now with it gone, the importance of it, of community and being together is it could last for me. I'm lucky. I could, you know, movies have paid my way, you know, but the community of theater is life-changing. Like, I've heard people talk about movies that changed their life. Theater changed my life. And there are shows I've seen that have changed my life.
And also, like, I think, isn't it the world of theater, especially in New York, when you really think about it, is it's a whole community in and of itself. It's small, but people have been in it for a long time. And, you know, there's actors that, you know, almost do theater exclusively. There's certainly people that work in the theaters at all levels that have been doing that for years, that there is a dug in world of theater that is a lot warmer and a lot more inviting and a lot more sort of grounded in its own community than film. I mean, you know, you do films like, you know, you see a gaffer and you're like, oh yeah, dude, you were on that. Hey man, what's up? But it seems that more so than not, when I talk to actors about who do movies together, even if you spend a year with these people, you leave and that's it. You know,
totally,
it's done.
Totally,
you know, you're not hanging out.
And also, I think there's just the nature of the schedule's great.
With what? Theater?
Theater, like, you know, rehearsals are usually, you know, 9, 10 o'clock till 5,
right.
You know, and then when you finally in the show,
you do the show.
You know, you do the show. You get there at 6, 7. You maybe, you know, on Tuesdays and Saturdays you're doing matinee and an evening performance, but your whole day is taken up. But like the rest of the days, you have your day, and then in the evening you have this thing you're doing.
Yeah, and
to something to look forward to. There's a sort of profound sort of like inconsistency to the schedule of making movies that is like, you know, there's no real consistency at all.
No, you don't know when you're going to be like, we're going to need you today to do the thing with the hat.
Yeah, and everybody needs to be there to work, particularly the actors.
Right.
Everybody needs to be there, even if they're only in a scene or two. If you're there for 4 scenes, you need to be there every night. You need to be there every night.
At the theater.
Yeah, and in a movie, they'll call you in.
Yeah.
They're like, you know.
Well, the whole thing about, like, you know, just me, you know, being sort of green at it, like in trying to appreciate the process. I mean, you've been doing it since you were movie acting.
Green?
Yeah.
You're not green at it.
Movies? Yeah, I am. I've only done a few. You know, I haven't been acting that long, you know, really. I mean, I did Glow. I did my show, but I haven't been in that many movies.
You know, Jesse Peretz is a good friend.
Oh, yeah, Jesse's great. Yeah, Jesse and his cast iron pans and his New York attitude. Yeah. I love Jesse. Yeah.
Cast iron pans.
He likes his cast iron, doesn't he?
Hey, who doesn't, man?
I love them.
It
Yeah.
lasted a long time.
Sure, man. You got it. Fetishize cast iron. I'm in and out of that. I do it. I have a pretty deep relationship with the cast iron right now.
Well, it's clear. I
Yeah.
mean, you're mocking
Yeah.
it, so it's very clear
Yes,
that
I recently
you care about it.
I recently re-seasoned a cast iron.
There he is.
Yeah,
There he is. There he is.
But talking about you're acting when you're a kid. You're in your parents' movie. Did you train to act at some point in any real way?
You mean, did I go to school for acting?
Or
Like, did I go to
class,
acting
whatever.
school?
Did you learn to act at some point outside of just experientially?
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, when I was very young, I would go to this place called the Young Actors Space in Studio City, right? I started there was never any formal training, but I did go to classes. I took classes, but like those kind of classes you take at school.
Oh, okay.
But I never went to an acting school. I have had to learn the sort of more technical things about acting and how to survive as an adult actor, as I could,
from people on
people
shoots.
picking up books. Yeah, like picking up books, reading different ideas, sort of getting into the different ideas of acting from people who have been to school for acting.
Like who? Like who have you worked with where you're sort of like picked up, sort of tricks that, because I think the question I'm sort of beating around the bush here is that there's a tedious element to film and television acting. There's a lot of waiting around. The takes are quick. You have to be aware of a lot of things to make the take resonate as best it can. And on some level, as an actor, it seems like if you don't look at it correctly, it could be fairly unsatisfying.
Well, I mean, man, is it a great job, number one.
Sure.
There's a lot of tedium that I would prefer not to go
Of course. Yeah. I mean, I guess that's a given. I'm just saying, like, as an artist, as some guy who I just talked to about theater with for a half hour, because
sorry about that.
No, I love it. But like for me, like I just recently realized that, when you do a scene, when you've got to shoot, when it's action, that, that has to be the thing. You can't sit around bored or, you learn how to use that free time. But the thing of acting in a movie, it's in these pieces and you've got to show up for those pieces. And as an artist, you want them to be satisfying.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's a skill. I think it's a skill that is not my strongest skill. I much prefer a long endurance run than I do a sprint.
Right. Yeah.
And I use that like metaphorically as an actor. Like figuratively speaking, I do. Like it's a very difficult skill to come in and like kill it in a little space.
Right.
And I've developed techniques to try and do that, to give a director what they need. And speaking of being on film, it's like the digital part of it has been helpful because you can kind of do a series, like that kind of, let's just keep rolling and I'm going to do that same scene again. Can we just go from I'm getting the energy up. Can I just start from the beginning again?
I'm in it now.
Yeah. So, but I mean, those skills, I've watched so many actors and what they do over the years. I've mimicked them. I've mimicked their behavior before takes. Some of those things have worked for me. Some of them haven't. Some of them gotten me in trouble. Some of them haven't. You can watch somebody rile themselves up and they can, they can like get really frustrated or get like they're in the moment and they're riling themselves up. Who do you have in mind
right now?
I remember beautiful work. I mean, there's so many actors. So many actors do some crazy shit, man. Like, to get themselves into a scene.
Yeah.
I do remember watching, like, being kind of in awe of watching Heath Ledger, like when we were, and how he would get himself into a scene. And I worked at a young age with Dustin Hoffman and Susan Sarandon and Holly Hunter and
all of those. Out of all the actors you could name, I could see them really putting a lot of whatever it is into getting ready to do it.
Well, I remember Dustin.
Which movie?
I remember. It's called Moonlight Mile.
Okay.
I remember Susan telling me. Before you have an emotional scene, you should drink a lot of water because tears really do dehydrate you. You know, and these are the things you pick up where, like, I'll never forget.
Yeah.
Like I will, and it, like I'll drink so much water before an emotional scene, and people will be like, "What's wrong with him?" Like I won't cry the whole scene. I'll just drink water. Yeah. It's just like something that Susan Sarandon told me. Or
in case you cried, you wanted to be filled up. You wanted to.
Yes. Yeah, you need a full tank. Yeah, you need a full tank. But I think that like I would watch Dustin get physically, like he would get his energy up, like he would actually get his blood flowing, which is something that I didn't even understand at the time. I didn't even get. Oh right, this is your instrument, right? Sure. Which is a very typical thing you would learn in acting class, which I did do. You do warm up exercise and things like that. But that was like I remember him doing sort of push-ups and running in place and getting ready before sometimes just a regular scene where he walked through. Having that stuff going through you,
being alive,
just flowing.
Yeah. Those are two good lessons. Yeah, get yourself worked up a little bit and drink a lot of water.
Hydrated.
A lot of hydrated.
Yeah.
Well,
I mean, is there anything else?
Present. Be present.
I don't know what that means. I think for a long time, I really love the idea when you talk about being present. I love the idea of actually being present to the things that are going on. Like you can't. And that was what was cool about the theater piece that we did in the Seawall Life thing was things happened and you have these classic stories of all these wonderful, incredible legends of the theater telling like some woman opening her, butterscotch candy that like they're not going to start until she finishes that wrapper, Patti LuPone, like going in and like taking the pack of gum out of the woman's hands, and saying like you're destroying, the sacred space. But like what I think is cool is responding to the present of what's happening.
Right.
The audience is with you.
Sure.
Like even if you're in 17th century France or some shit on stage, stuff's happening out there in the audience, and it could be inspiring.
Yeah. When you're on a stage, you feel. I mean, if you're at all attentive, which I am hyper attentive, you feel almost emotionally connected to that crowd. I can feel a crowd easily. I mean, I know. When I look outside, like before I do a show at a theater, I'll go onto the theater before the crowd comes in, just to sort of assess the space. But when they come in, and I'm looking from the backstage, I'm like, I know exactly where the pockets are. I know where there might be resistance. I know where there's a problem. Sometimes I'm.
Do you project ever? Do you project?
Oh yeah, all the time.
Do you find yourself like being like?
I project. I project all the time. It's part of my genius. Is that like I'll like even when I come in to interview someone like you, I'm like I'll have decided who you are, and then we just sort we'll just sort of battle back from that.
Don't think I didn't know that. I was very present at the top of this interview. I understand.
I talked to your sister. Did you listen to me talk to your sister?
I didn't.
Oh yeah.
She's pretty cool.
She's very cool, and like sort of like earnest and kind of like. And a little intimidating with the earnest.
Good. I'm glad she intimidated you.
Oh no! How are you? How does she not intimidate everybody? Isn't that? So...
Well, she's happens to be pretty brilliant. So
no, she's great.
Yeah, but yes, she is my sister, and she has a really lovely voice.
Oh yeah,
so
great voice.
There's like it's like very soothing
and really smart, and it was great. It was a great talk. But this is going good too. Don't be intimidated.
That's okay. It's okay. You can have a better time with her. I'm cool.
No, we didn't. I don't remember laughing a lot, and we've had some good laughs. I remember the intimidation sort of stifled the laughter part.
I just had to deal because I have a lot less interesting things to say.
I don't know if that's true.
I've just had to use humor as a crutch.
I like it.
That's basically
so. Like when you talk about Heath preparing, like that character was so repressed, compressed. And sort of smoldering in a sort of strange, sensitive way. What do you remember him doing for Brokeback?
I remember really beautiful things about him telling me early on that the character was very sensitive to light, and sound. That we were just sensitive to those things.
Really,
and that defined the shape of his character from very early.
He decided that, or Ang Lee decided that.
He decided that. He decided on his own. And so, I think this idea of this, I really reveled in that always, this idea of this sort of the sort of quote unquote kind of stronger version of the two of them, you know, this sort of typical male version of the sort of opposing kind of ideas that Aang was going for in that movie. I really have observed so many wonderful actors.
It's amazing.
That to me is what outside of the movies I've done or the things